today we have an amazing guest. If you're thinking about changing your career or anything of the sort, really taking a chance on life, this is the episode for you. Jenn O'Reilly is the head of strategy at Nike UK, but before that, she has worked with taxes, she was a professional athlete, and a lot more. I really think you're gonna like this one. Hi everyone, I'm here with Jenn O'Reilly, head of strategy at Nike UK.
Hi Val.
And she's a badass, and she's here to talk to us about how she became such a badass.
I was born a badass, Val.
Yeah, that's true, honestly. Jenn, tell us where you're from, where you live, and what do you currently do?
I am from Ireland. I'm from Dublin, and that's where I grew up. I am currently living in London, and I consider that home for the last 7 years, I think, in Notting Hill. And what do I do? Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah. That's what I said.
So I work for Nike, and I work in sport, which is my passion. And my particular role in Nike is head of commercial strategy for sports marketing. So in sports marketing in Nike, what that means within our colloquialisms of a global company is that we look after solely the performance side of sport. So the elite athletes, footballers, track and field, and other sports as well, but the elite performance side of it. So I look after the strategy for that team.
We like to start things by asking everyone what's the worst job they ever had.
My career path is a bit interesting in the fact that it definitely wasn't straight. So I have had a career change in my life, and I used to be a tax consultant or a tax lawyer actually before I worked in sport. So I've had lots of interesting jobs, and I've worked through a recession in finance as well. So I'm sure we'll go into talking about working in your passion and things like that later. But when you kind of gave me the heads up and anything that sprung to mind, I think I haven't hated any of my jobs, like hated. Yeah.
Even tax jobs you like?
Yeah, I think you find something that you really like in it, or you make it work for you.
Okay.
But there was one moment in my life that I was like, what is going on? And it's like, when I changed career, obviously you kind of go back down to the bottom, like the pile of what you have to do. And so when I wanted to work in sports, some of the first job that I got was involved in events and running hospitality and things like that. And I remember a particular bunch of clients that I was working with, although they would say for, because I think they thought I was their slave. I remember one of the clients' wives asking me for orange juice. And I mean, I wasn't a server, I was organising the event, but it's like anything. If it makes something run smoother, I'll get it anyway. It's irrelevant. So I went to get her orange juice, and I brought it back, and she told me it was too cold.
No.
So I then was like, okay, cool. And I took it from her. And now this was pre-COVID, but I fished out the ice cubes with my hands, and then went to give it back to her. And I was just like, it was just a moment that I was like, what is my life? Like, how is this my job? And I went to university. Why am I fishing out people's ice cubes because it's too cold? So yeah, that was probably like the worst moment of like paid work that I was like, this is not cool.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So what did you study in university?
So I studied law, and in particular German law, actually.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. I don't know why, but I always pictured myself to be like a super career, like power woman, whatever, like in a big office in a skyscraper, like looking over, I don't know, New York City or something. But so I always wanted to do something that was quite a clear career path, but also something that had I guess I didn't have that much imagination as to what like you could do outside of the professions.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I studied law, or that's what I wanted to do because of the power and the money that I perceived to be involved in it. And also the prestige. It's probably an ego thing as well. But I was super intelligent, but I never worked hard, ever. So I didn't get enough good enough grades to do law. So there's this course where you have to study German law as well. And obviously less people want to do that because it's much harder in a different language. So I got into that. So really, I just did it because I wanted to do law, and nobody really wanted to do law in German. Well, not nobody, but only 18 people in the country. So yeah.
So your dream of working in a skyscraper was more like working in a skyscraper, if that exists, in like Frankfurt.
Yeah, exactly.
It shifted a bit.
It shifted, but I mean, it's completely shifted since then. So.
Yeah, but that's what's interesting. So I know you very well. So I know you're like one of the most competitive humans I've ever met, in a good way. And you are really good at sports, like every sport, as far as I know. So it makes sense that you work at Nike. But you were in the rowing team, right?
Yeah.
In school.
Yeah.
Not in school, university. In university. Yeah. But then at some point, beyond doing tax consultancy, you became a cyclist.
Yeah.
Or you were. So how did that happen?
So in university, I joined the rowing crew, and from that, I've had the best friends of my life. Like, they're like my sisters. You've met them.
Yes.
But they're there through thick and thin, and still are 20 years later. It's insane. And I just loved it. I loved the intensity. I loved how much time it took. I love how much effort it took, and everything about it. I just really, really loved it. So it was a really good introduction to elite sport and what it took to be the best, and the commitment it took, and also the team management and the way in which, because predominantly universities is competed in eights. So, it's a lot of man management. If there's 8 people plus the cocks, that's 9. Yeah. And then plus the subs, to actually turn up kind of for about 4 hours a day, usually 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. It really kind of consolidated what I know, or like made me think that was what sport is. And it was a really, really positive experience. And when I sort of was going to wrap up university, I did a master's. I studied business as well, just to put some use to my random law degree. And so I studied business, and then I moved universities, and I went to a university that had a really good crew. And so we competed a lot on that. And then I moved into being a tax consultant, and I had a job, and it's really difficult to be in a crew when you have a job, because you need not to run out of the door like at 5 on the dot. It just doesn't happen. I plotted my escape from rowing, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. It was so difficult to leave because I loved it so much, and I loved competing, but it just wasn't possible to do both. And so what I thought would be good would be to take up triathlon, just as a casual thing.
It doesn't take any time to train for that either. I'm so relaxed.
Well, as it turns out, I'm quite good at swimming because I'm Irish, so we grew up in an island. And I was pretty good at cycling. I don't know why, but I think it's the same systems as rowing, lungs and legs. And then I was terrible at running, absolutely terrible. I also hated it. Yeah. I'd be second out of the water, and then first off the bike, and then I'd finish 50th, because of the run. So a coach saw me doing triathlon. He was like, "Oh, I think you, cycling coach, I think you'd be good at cycling." So from that, I guess long story short, fast forward about a year or 2 of really training specifically for cycling, I made it onto the Irish team, and we moved out to Switzerland, and I trained at the World Cycling Centre in Aigle, and the goal was to qualify for London 2012. And so we were doing that full time as a team, and it was an awesome time in my life. It was super stressful, and when people say, "Did you enjoy it?" I don't think there was any enjoyment or joy, because it was constant stress and constant feedback of numbers. There was nothing that was like we were based sometimes in Mallorca, and people are like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, I didn't see any of Mallorca.
Yeah.
I was looking at like my power output and whatever. In the January, my teammate broke her wrist, and then I got a bacterial infection called Helicobacter, which meant that we travelled to Beijing and to qualify, and we didn't do well in that race, so we didn't do well enough to qualify. So I gave up the cycling and went back to being a tax consultant.
No! I mean, what type of cycling did you do? You did the one inside the thing, right?
Yeah,
what's it called?
So I did track cycling.
Yes.
Like that's what I was kind of my strength and why I was on the Irish team. But then through that, I also did a lot of road racing in Holland, and did a few World Cups as well on the road. Which were really hard because I wasn't as good as everyone else. But it was a great experience. Yeah.
That is amazing. So you go back to being a tax consultant. But then at that time, did you already think that you wanted to work with sport? Or did you just went like, oh no, okay, that was fine, fun time, then go back to the real world? So how?
Yeah, I was always really, I guess, interested in, say, the idea of like Jerry Maguire or that sort of thing where it's like, just like the cool side of sport or the like business side of sport. I was interested in it, but I didn't know as someone, and I think this is relevant probably for a lot of people, like someone living in a country that's not a key city in the world. I didn't live in London, I didn't live in New York. How can you work in sport?
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult. And so I don't think my imagination like had enough confidence to leap that far yet. So I just went back to being a tax consultant, and as well, I was fully qualified in that. So I knew I could earn money fast, and like having been a full-time cyclist for 2 years, I needed to earn money.
That's not the way to become a millionaire.
Yeah,
actually.
Exactly. Yeah. But it also gave me the opportunity to earn money to save. I'm not sure when I went back into it, I had that thinking, but like a year into it, I was like, look, I loved working where I did. It was great. But I think I was an outlier in the fact that I was a people person. And in tax in general, there's not that many of them. So
really?
Like it was great because most people in that industry are wired to look at the detail and crunch the numbers and, really think about things from a legislation point of view. Whereas I kind of like doing that on the side and then meeting the clients, and it was great because not that many people wanted to do that. So I do think it's an interesting thing when you look to change career and you find yourself in a career where everyone is similar to you. Like it's awesome in one way, but in another way, you don't have like a uniqueness anymore, right? So like I was the creative people person in tax, but if you move to sport, everyone's creative and everyone's a people person, and everyone's a team player, and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm the finance person in sport, But also I guess that you have to look at what the unique selling point for you is getting into that market. And not that many people have strengths in finance or, I'm not even good at finance. I just bluff my way. But like, don't tell anyone that.
No, we'll cut that part.
But so I was about 18 months back in Ireland, back working a kind of a top 4 consultancy firm, doing well as well. But I just had this niggling kind of thing just sort of knocking away at me saying, it's not exactly what you want to do. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So it's pretty difficult to express that to people. So I think I probably waited until I was really sure, even though I still didn't know what it was, but I was really sure that I needed to try. So I handed in my notice in Dublin. I packed my bags and I got the boat over to London.
The boat?
Yeah.
You can take a boat?
Yeah, from Ireland to Wales and then a train from Wales to London.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I brought my bike and I brought like 30 kg of a North Face bag, and that was it. Like I literally came on the boat. And I landed in London, and I gave myself like 6 months to meet people for coffee, to see what the industry was like, to see if there was opportunities. I didn't really even know what I was looking for, but I knew that I had to try, and I knew that, the sports industry or my perception is that it was very much based in like London, Hong Kong, Shanghai, or like New York, right?
Yeah.
I know that's not quite true, but that was my perception from the outside. So yeah, I chose London. It was easiest to move to.
So how did you go about like setting up those coffees with people? How did you find them?
I mean, it was pretty stressful in the sense that like people, they'd ask you, how are you getting on? And to be honest, like it was just even a full-time job setting up, I would say 1 to 2 meetings a week, which were only coffee, and sometimes they amounted to nothing. And sometimes the person cancelled, which is fine. Like everyone has something busy going on. But I would say that like, anyone that's trying to do it right now or in the future, like don't be so hard on yourself. It's really hard to set them up, and also you're at the mercy of their free time, not your free time. And I think it's important, even though it's really hard, like to be available whenever. So I just I was strong in the fact that I shouldn't get another job in the meantime. So I had, I don't know, I think it was like maybe £10,000 or something saved up from being a tax consultant. And that I thought that would last me 6 months. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like that's what I've got to do. Yeah. So yeah, I was in the privileged position of being able to do that from my savings. But I think it's important if you want to meet people that you're available for them, because it's really tough to meet them in your time.
Especially if you're the one who mostly wants something from them, right? But would you ask them like, look, I'm looking to get into the industry, or?
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes, like I did cold approach some people, and I don't think, like, I know people want to help, but I think maybe doing that like from afar is quite difficult. And you don't know if they're getting the message, or, if they think you want to sell them something, which I didn't. But what I found really useful is like, if you get one person to meet you, then just ask them, do you think there's anyone else? Could you recommend a friend of yours? Like, what do you think about this company? Do you know anyone at it? And that usually works the best, I think. Because even just from one seedling, like you might meet 3 people, it might be useless, but they might say, oh yeah, but I really value, or that's a huge competitor of ours, or, I'd respect them. And then you can be like, okay, well, I'll focus on that, because I didn't think that much of that company, but now that you've told me it's a competitor of yours, like, must be good. So yeah, I think just leapfrogging from one person to the next was probably the best thing to do.
That's really good advice. I think that works really well. So then how did you land your first gig in sport? Was your first job in London then in sports?
Yeah.
It was, right?
Yeah. Well, I was on month 7 and Christmas was there. So it's like, oh my gosh, like I was so stressed. So I did take a waitressing job in a bar, in a gastro bar on the Fulham Road, which will remain nameless because I absolutely hated it.
So maybe that was the worst job.
It's really famous for food, but like the customers and the staff were just awful. Like just so disrespectful. Like I'm a person, and it really gives you a perspective on like, just treating people equally. Not that I wouldn't, but like I'm so aware now of waiting staff or that, and just being like not even talk, just ignored. Anyway, so I took that for a month. It was awful. But yeah, it was my first proper job in London, was in sports. So it really came about like probably from the combination of about 3 different people and coffees. And even like I remember meeting people for coffee, and they'd have, I don't think there was flat whites at that time. It was like 6-7 years ago. But they'd have like a cappuccino, and then they'd get like a croissant and whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God, please don't buy anything else. Like I have to pay for this, And I'm like, oh, it's on me. Oh gosh.
But coffee in London is very expensive.
Yeah, but I think it is important to that, like their time is valued as well. But I'm like, yeah, not 2 croissants. Anyway, it was probably the culmination of about 3 three different coffees and like three different people saying, well, I know this person who knows this person. And then someone saying, oh yeah, someone, I think it was from like IMG, saying about the company that I ended up going to, oh yeah, I consider them a competitor, which I thought was really interesting. Layered on top of that, one of my friend's sister's friend worked for this company. Like, it was completely tenuous, the link. And I was like, well, can you ask her if I can come in and have a chat, you know?
Yeah.
And so I did, and they were super nice. They didn't really have anything at the time. And I didn't have a clue what I even wanted, you know? So, like, I empathize with them, but they happened, I think about a month or two later, they happened to have an opening for like some extra work for an event. So I was like, yeah, I'm available. I'm going to come in. And I came in for 2 weeks and just like sat in on meetings and got to know people. Like, it was tough. Like, you're kind of I'm a bit shy a little bit. And like just putting yourself out there, and you're from a different country. It was definitely not easy, but it was great to see what was going on in the sports world and to see what was going on in an agency and what an agency even was and how it's structured. And I remember like some people were like very shut down when I asked them for time. They definitely give me the time and sit down and tell me their job, but they'd be like, yeah, but it's like, there's no room, it's not for you, or, you know, it's not for a woman.
Really?
Yeah, like say more like the commercial side of doing deals with athletes and things. Like, they were like, it's not, yeah, there's only one woman in this like industry. You wouldn't get on well. And for a competitive person, you're like, well,
just wait. You're like, don't you know it?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I know, it's interesting, isn't it? And I don't know, like, if it came from warning me off it, or because hey, it's not like a mega earning job, but it was something that I was telling them was my passion, but yet they were like, no, don't bother. But yeah, so at the very, very end, like, I was finishing up my work experience. I think it was like 6 p.m. on the Friday or something. And a brief came in, and the MD came over and just said, oh, look, this brief has come in. Would you help me answer it on Monday? And I was like, yeah, but I don't work here on Monday. I'm finished. And he was like, oh, okay, I'll just come in. And so like, I just came in, and it was great because I did the brief work. We got the job for that brief. And then they kept me on for the like month that work was happening, and they gave me expenses. And then like I stayed on for another 2 months, and they gave me like basic wage. I don't even know what it was, nothing. And then I got a full-time job from it. So that was awesome. But it was still like entry level salary and work in London, where I was outperforming like my co-workers, but that's what the job was. And in an agency structure, that is your job title, and that's all they can bill for you. So they do. Yeah, it was definitely I stayed there for 2 years. I learned loads. And agency is great because you get to see a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And you can see different industries, you can see different clients, and you get exposed to different sports as well. So it was really good like that. And also different parts of the industry. So hospitality, like I mentioned, I am not bred for hospitality. Well, I can consume hospitality, but I can't actually. And yeah, I just think agency is great, but my passion now, or like my real piece to kind of hopefully change the industry a bit and change barriers to entry and to up the different types of people that can work in it, particularly in London. I really think that you need to pay your interns properly, and work experience too. Like, I think it's disgraceful to ask someone to work for free, regardless of what your budget for like the event or whatever is. If you do, you're only going to get the same type of people. The people who have money to do it. And yeah, I had the money to work for free for whatever, a month or two, but I definitely didn't have the money to work for free for a year. And some people are asked to do that, and they're presented it like it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it is an opportunity, but only if you are privileged enough to take it.
Yeah.
So like it's definitely one of the things that I would love to change about how things are done. And in Nike, we do pay our interns, and we pay them pretty well as well. So, but just from an agency perspective, I think, if I was ever going to use an agency as a client, it's probably one of the things I would ask them.
That's good. Yeah, because I think that's one thing that you can do to change. As like, but was it hard for you? Because I think that's one of the things when people consider a career change is that you already had a lot of experience as a tax consultant. You had like a good job. You had all these years, and I assume you took a junior. Yeah, so you took an entry level job, and I assume there were a lot of potentially younger people than you who were almost like your line manager. Was that difficult for you to understand, like, okay, I need to take almost like a step back in the career to get into the career that I want?
Yeah.
Or was that okay?
I think I had rectified it within my brain and like me that it was okay because I was choosing to do this.
Yeah.
And what I was also really aware of is that there is barriers in the sense that some people don't want to manage people older than them. So they don't want to take them onto their workforce because they might be a bit of hassle. And so when I was working as a entry level with people who were younger than me, I was just really aware that in the industry that I was in, they had more experience. So I did learn from them. But also, I was aware that some people didn't like that. But you just have to manage that yourself because it's a choice that you made to go back in your career. And sometimes just suck it up. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, it can be hard. So then you were there for 2 years, and then how did you end up at Nike?
So I was there and I think I was just looking to move on in my career, not so much like escape that agency or anything like that. I loved it. I loved the people I worked with as well. They were awesome. But I was looking also to move on from a salary perspective.
Yes, I imagine.
London is tough on whatever, like entry level salary. And it's just, your friends are having a different quality of life than you, and it's really tough to even try and go and make new friends and things like that when every dinner invite, every like drinks at the pub, you're just hoping that they don't split the bill or don't get loads of stuff or you don't get caught out, and it's just too stressful to do that when you can do more. So I was looking to move on, and I think I saw something. I'm sure I applied for a few jobs. I can't remember the other ones I applied for, but I saw a job that was within Nike that was looking for someone who had law, finance, and sports marketing experience.
So like no one.
Yeah, I don't think there's many. I mean, like I'll stand corrected, but I just don't think there's that many. And the reason that they were looking for that is because the role that I do now, or the team that I'm involved in, looks after renegotiation of contracts for athletes. So it was important to be able to read those contracts and negotiate the deals. So that's why they're looking for law. Also, we have about 500 assets. So that's athletes, clubs, federations in EMEA West, which is UK and Ireland. So there's a lot of financial juggling involved in paying all those people, rewarding them for their performance, but also making sure that we have enough to finish out the year in like a good way for the business. So that's why they wanted someone to do finance, and it was intrinsically linked to a sports brand, so that's why they needed someone who worked in sport. So I went for the job interview, and I think I just got on really well with everyone from day one. So I was lucky, and I got the job.
Yeah, so you've been there for a while.
Yeah, I've been there for 4 years.
Yeah,
it's funny. I think another thing that I completely underestimated, and this isn't just in sport or just in the creative industry, but working in a global company is such a matrix organization that actually I think it takes, and I hate when people say this, it really irked me at the start of when I started working there, but it takes years to even scratch the surface of the way in which Nike as an organization globally works, and just tune into that. And I don't know how many, like tens of thousands of employees, something like 30,000. Like to do your job well within that organization and that matrix is it takes a while. And so I think I found that there's people who've been there 25 years and that just happens in a flash.
Wow.
So, and I can imagine, because everything's always evolving and it moves so fast that, it's like whatever, the opposite of dog years, I think.
Yeah. But you didn't, in the end, did you study any marketing or sports marketing? You just learned on the business, right?
Yeah, I just learned on the job. I did, in my master's, I did do probably a module on international marketing, but I hadn't a clue what it was. Literally, I hadn't a clue. So yeah, a total work on the job, but also a total thirst for learning about it.
Yeah.
Not like from a nerdy way, but just because I was really interested. And it's about people. It's about how people think. And I think, like, if you're an empathetic person, then it's really interesting to you to think about how other people operate, how they make decisions, and how they think. And just even like culture, like being exposed to different types of culture, exposed to different types of creatives. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So if for someone who would like to get into the sports industry and they don't know how, what would you say to them? What would be like your tips?
I think in anything, like, probably don't have a particular job in mind, because I think by the time you get there, the world changes so fast.
Okay.
I think what you really need to do, and in some ways I wish I had have known this or been told it, but maybe I wouldn't have listened. I think that, like, everyone should just follow their passion and, like, really recognize and do some work into, like, where they operate in their element the most, like where they feel like they can add most value, what really lights their fire, because if you are involved in that and if you follow that, success will come. You will surround yourself with people who, like, not to say that everyone needs to surround themselves with the same type of people, but I think, like, you'll surround yourself with people who are interested in what you're doing. You'll be interested in what they're doing. You'll want to help them. They'll want to help you. And so, yeah, I think, like, do whatever you can as your hobby. Keep an eye out for what the industry is like, what's it doing, like what's going on social media, what are the different movements, like what can you get involved in from a volunteer perspective, and just really surround yourself in it. But it is tough, and I think if you do that, if it doesn't work out, you'll find another path anyway.
Yeah. I think that the volunteering is important because you do a lot of things. I mean, I spoke the other day personally about how joining an organization as a trustee or as a board member or anything is super valuable, even if the organization, it's not something that you work with very closely, because you learn a lot of different skills. And that's also a good way for you to, like, network and meet people. And you're super involved with me. You're part of Good Gym, and then you do the
Leander, yeah.
What's it called?
Leander Club.
Leander Club, which is a rowing club.
Yeah.
Which you're part of something.
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk to me about it a little bit, like how you got involved with those things. What was your experience?
Yeah, I think... how did I get involved? I don't even know. I think what you have to do is just, or what should come naturally is probably just put your hand up for things. Ask people, do they need help? Ask how you could, explain your skill set, and ask, is that of value to them? And that's what I did. I was a member of Leander all along since I was a rower. It's the most successful sporting club in the world from an Olympic medal perspective.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like their Olympic medal hit rate is second to none. There is no club, any sport in the world that has more medals than them from Olympics.
That's why you joined them.
Of course.
Because you had to be on the last one.
Of course. No, but I love, like, it's Henley's such a special place for me. It's where we raced, or it was where the pinnacle of our racing as a crew was back in the day. And so it's a really special place. And I think I wanted to remain having a tie there and an active tie, and that's why I offered just my learned expertise in the business that I have, or the industry I happen to be in, offered to help them. And then I helped them a little bit, and then they asked me to sit on as a director on the board of directors there. And even though it's a voluntary position, like, I would never be exposed to being on the board of directors, sitting at a directors meeting, for any organization, probably for another 20 years of my career, if I'm lucky. Like, yeah. I mean, the executive board of Nike, like, I could only ever, it is my aim to make it there, but I think it will be another 20 years or so. So to be able to sit on a board that is making really important decisions as a committee, and is discussing them in a proper format, which gets together, it's been a really, really good learning experience for me. And I'm sitting there with people of like vast experience, and even the way in which you chair a meeting of a board and how that works is, it's been amazing. So even though it's just voluntary, I am a director, and my name is registered with Companies House as a director of a company. So all of that should be good for the future, and it's good for my experience. But I think anything that takes your time, you have to love why you're getting involved in it. I think it would be super energy sapping if I just did it to get ahead.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. You need to really care about it, because it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
Whatever we take as a side hustle needs to be a bit strategic, you know.
Yeah, it's great.
Useful,
I guess, like,
for your soul.
Working in sports, I really recognize what partnerships are, and so I think anything that I do, it's important that it's a partnership. And so if there's like an unequal take and give, then it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's probably like a life lesson. I don't know.
Here I am.
But like, it definitely in work, it definitely in volunteering. I think, anything that you do, you have to go fully into it. Expecting not much, but probably like being open to getting something out of it.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, Jen, I'm very happy you came to talk to me today.
Yeah, thanks, Val.
Before we close, I'm going to do a quick round of questions that you need to choose one option or the other. Okay? It's about sports.
Can I win?
You can win yourself, because we'll see. You have to tell me which one you prefer to watch, or play, depending on the circumstances. You ready?
Right, yeah.
Okay. American football or football?
Football.
Okay. Rugby or cycling?
Watching?
Yeah.
Rugby.
Okay. Doing, I imagine, cycling.
Doing cycling, yeah.
Okay. Judo or boxing?
Boxing. Only because I'm probably ignorant to the skills of judo. Okay.
Jiu-jitsu or karate?
Oh, I don't know. I did try jiu-jitsu and I was terrible at it. I didn't know how to win. So, and Val knows that. But I'm going to go with karate, just because I'd be exposed to something that I haven't seen before.
Okay. CrossFit or running? That's easy.
Watching.
Well, yeah.
Okay, running. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because we're talking about like sprinting as well, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, running, 100%.
Okay. Tennis or baseball?
Tennis.
Okay. Cricket or basketball?
Basketball.
Okay, good. You passed. You win. Whatever it is that you wanted to win.
I'm sure I've offended some people with my choices, but they're my choices.
No, it's okay. I think you did very well.
Good.
Thanks, Jen, for coming. And yes, if anyone wants to buy Jen flat whites or croissants, just hit her up, okay?
No, I have to give back now because, if anyone wants to meet for coffee, I will buy them a coffee.
Yeah, she takes her Americanos black with the milk cold on the side, okay?
Very good, Val.
There you go. So I'm giving you guys the opportunity. You already know what to order.
But thanks for doing the I Like Networking. I think it's awesome. I think it's a great platform for people to be able just to share some information. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to the I Like Networking podcast. Please remember to share, subscribe, and review the podcast so that more people can find us. All the information discussed on this episode will be on the show notes. See you next time.